They try to move a kid like she was carry-on, like a mistake that needed to be tucked farther back, and then she said her last name, and the cabin temperature dropped 10 degrees. Yeah, that happened. And if you've ever watched a whole crowd realize they've been wrong at the exact same time, you know the sound, a hush with teeth. Let me back up a sec. It's 2:47 p.m. Gate B7, JFK, the air smelling like hot metal and jet fuel and vanilla hand sanitizer, boarding music pinging out of tiny ceiling speakers, business class already half full, laptop lids at 45 degrees, ice clinking in plastic cups that pretend to be glass, and in 3, there's a little black girl who isn't trying to make a statement. She's just trying to sit still, knees together, lavender backpack hugged close, eyes flicking from window to seat back like. She's training herself to be both invisible and brave at the same time. You know what I mean. A shadow leans in her light, a flight attendant. Smile so practiced it squeaks at the edges. Sweetheart, this seat isn't for you. Can I see your real boarding pass? Voice dipped in honey and vinegar. The kind that says bless your heart and move along. And the girl, Ava, fishes out a crumpled slip with hands that don't yet know how to be shaky. Offers it like a passport to safety, and the attendant barely glances, smile tightened. This says business class, as if that's the punchline. Are you? Sure, it's yours. And suddenly the aisle becomes a stage, and everyone becomes an audience that thinks they're invisible. A man in a charcoal blazer mutters, not quite whispering. Maybe she snuck up from Coach. A woman 2 seats back starts filming in stealth like stealth is a kindness. Someone else says, is she even with an adult? And a second attendant arrives, clipboard energy, policy voice, the kind that turns humanity into bullet points. This can't be right. She's unaccompanied. And Ava keeps saying the truest, smallest sentence in the world. My mom told me to sit here. But truth can sound like defiance. When people have already decided what you are, right? Phones rise like periscopes, little red dots blinking. A live stream winks on caption before the facts and catch up, and the comments begin to pelt the cabin like sleet, gentle at first, then harsher. Then the word security drifts in from a vest with an airport badge. Standard procedure, precaution, all those words that are supposed to be blankets, but always feel like knives. And Ava's bottom lip trembles, but her feet don't. And you can feel the whole plane holding its breath, bargaining with itself, waiting for the moment she gives in so we can all unclench and pretend nothing ugly happened here. Come with me, honey, we'll get you where you're supposed to be, the attendant says again, the honey, again, the vinegar, and in the third row a woman with sunglasses goes live from a different angle. Because angles are power now, they won't let this little girl sit ticket in hand crying. She narrates quietly, as if quiet can soften what's being recorded in high definition. And the badge man crouches at eye level and asks for her name, like a formality he'll ignore. And Ava says, Ava Jackson. And he stutters, just for a flick of glitch in the script, then stands too fast. We'll need you to sit in economy for now. And the row behind him exhales a tiny, angry laugh. Ava doesn't move, no. And that one syllable is louder than all the intercoms on Earth. No, she says again. And somewhere 3 rows back, someone whispers, we're watching. Not to her, but to the camera, and the live count ticks up 200 for 100, 900, and you can feel the story tilting from incident to evidence. Here's the thing about crowds. Though they're cowards until they acquire the older couple who said nothing now says too much, kids like that don't fly business alone. The wife murmurs, her cashmere wrap pulled tighter like bias is a draft, and a younger woman across the aisle snaps, kids like what? And the sentence dies on the way out, because finishing it would be a confession. And you can't tell the truth out loud when you're busy pretending you don't see it. Security arrives, all dark polyester and scripted calm. We can escort her off until her guardian arrives, and a chorus of no you can't rises from everywhere and nowhere. Phones raised like lanterns, and the vest says, it's protocol, and a voice from 5B fires back, protocol for what existing? And the badge man tries to round his vowels into reason. Let's remain calm. And Ava, tiny spine, oversized hoodie, backpack slipping toward her shoes, says the sentence that pops the cabin like a balloon. It's only difficult because I'm not white. And if a plane could flinch, this one does. She reaches into the front pocket of the lavender bag and pulls out a small laminated card the way you might pull out proof you shouldn't have to carry, holds it with both hands. Steady now. Voice flatter than fear. I was told to sit here, check again. And the clipboard woman squints, declines to take it, says they'll resolve it. And the camera in 6D zooms, crisp as a courtroom, and the letters on the card become legible, even to the people trying very hard not to read them. Ava Y. Jackson, Global Entry Minor Companion of Judicial Authority issuing body federal clearance program, and the murmur changes temperature from pity to recognition to something that sounds like, oh no. Wait, someone says too loud, Yolanda Jackson, and the current zips down the aisle, past the curtain, through first class, into the galley, and out to the gate agent's tablet, where the manifest sits like a loaded sentence when, Justice Y. Jackson and a supervisor on the jet bridge stops, pretending his walkie isn't a confession booth. We have a situation, he whispers, not low enough, and the algorithm hears it before the airline does, and the caption upgrades itself. Flight crew freezes when they hear her last name, and eyeballs pouring like rain. That's the twist, not that she belongs, but that everyone suddenly believes she does, because of who her mother is, and if that makes your stomach turn, good, keep that feeling, we're going to need it. The real counterpunch doesn't come from the crew, or the badge, or the pilot finally poking his head out to say, what's going on back there? It comes from a woman who hasn't said a word, curly hair, glasses, a patience that reads like steel. She's been filming, yes, but she's also been waiting, and when the cabin tips from bad to worse, she stands, flips her press badge out of the coat like a magician, reveals the card you swore you didn't pick. Camille Monroe, New York Sentinel, quiet, even devastating. I have everything, no edits, she says, not a threat, an announcement, and the clipboard trembles in a hand that's finally realized hands are visible in 4K. Phones blossom like night flowers. The comments get teeth. She told you her name. You didn't ask, you assumed. Why does a 9-year-old need a laminated shield to sit? And somewhere outside the glass wall, a producer barks into a headset and sends a cheering sprinting across America. And inside the plane, the badge man's shoulders sag as if gravity just found him. We'll locate your mother, he says, all the bass gone from the bass. And Ava, bless her braided head, picks up the card that no one wanted to hold and lifts it higher. You could have just believed me. From the curtain, a tall woman moves with the focus of storm you can hear before you see black blazer, silver pin. The kind of quiet that makes space around itself. She doesn't rush. She doesn't plead. She doesn't perform. She places a palm on her child's shoulder like the gavel you use when the courtroom forgot what justice sounds like. I assume you've heard of me now, Justice Yolanda Jackson says. Not sharp, not loud, just precise. And the pilot tries a sentence that turns to dust in his mouth. We were unaware of your presence. And the justice answers, I wasn't the one who needed awareness. And that line right there could be the whole episode. Applause bubbles up from the rear. Not the polite, kind of relieved, furious kind, the we see you kind. And the airline's local supervisor hisses into his mic about executive protocol and general counsel. And the internet, which has been running ahead of them this whole time, starts counting receipts, old reviews, quiet settlements, random reassignments that all tilted one way, a pattern the size of a runway, and the PR email hits inboxes while people are still clapping. We deeply regret this. Isolated miscommunication, the sort of sentence that's already apologizing to the shareholders. And Camille posts a side-by-side the company's DI page next to Ava's shaking hands and captions it with a scalpel. Don't preach equity while profiling black children in row 3. And you can hear the glass tower in Midtown start sweating through its suit. Look, we could cut to black here, call it a win, roll credits over a tidy apology and vouchers. But that wouldn't be the truth. And the truth is messier, longer, heavier. The truth becomes hearings and headlines and hallway whispers, becomes an editor who greenlights a series and a congresswoman who schedules an emergency session, becomes a phrase that trends not because it's catchy, but because it names something we pretended was rare, flying while black. Days blur airport protests with handmade signs, executives with the color drained from their promises, a CEO on a video call in a tie he didn't have time to straighten. We failed, he says, and he isn't wrong. Just late, and policies get scribbled in thick marker: youth travel protections, independent ombudsman, mandatory anti-bias training that's actually enforced, and a lawyer slides a folder across a boardroom table with incidents everyone hoped would stay buried underneath insufficient evidence, which is rich considering the problem was always too much evidence and not enough belief. And then it's microphones and oath-taking and a girl in a navy blazer stepping up to a Senate dais that's taller than it needs to be. My name is Ava Y. Jackson, I'm 9. I love space documentaries and sour candy, she says, and then she breathes, and the country leans in like a chair creaking before it breaks. I thought the scariest part of flying would be turbulence. It wasn't. And I swear to you, the room goes still enough to hear pins scratching regret into the record. I had a ticket. I sat in my seat, and they looked at me like I didn't belong. Not a sob, not a scream, just clarity, the kind that rearranges furniture in your head, without asking permission. A bill gets a name Ava's Law because sometimes a name is a lever, and sometimes a lever moves the floor, and the airline fires 5, suspends 8, hires auditors with nothing to gain from pretending donors quietly hit pause, competitors loudly update their playbooks, and in the middle of it, Ava sits in a quiet lounge beside her mother, watching her own face bounce around a world that finally, belatedly, saw her not for vanity, for confirmation that the truth made it out of row 3 intact. If this were a fairy tale, we'd jump to the last page. A perfect world where no one has to laminate their dignity, but the real ending is humbler and also bigger. It's 3 months later on a different morning. Boarding lane humming. Row 3, glowing on a pillar screen that can't help but feel like a wink. Miss Jackson, the attendant says, voice warm without the counterfeit shine of protocol. Your seat is ready. And Ava nods, steps through the same curtain that once felt like a border. The lavender backpack still soft at the edges, the little keychain still catching light like a tiny compass. And she sits not braced, not small, just home in the space she paid for, which should not be revolutionary. And yet, outside, near Gate B17, there's a plaque people stop to read, bronze warmed by 1,000 curious hands, in honor of Ava Y. Jackson, who refused to stand when asked to leave. July 5th, 2025, a sentence turned into metal photos snap. Kids point, teachers explain, and while monuments don't fix anything by themselves, they do something stubborn they remember out loud. The SEAT project takes off legal defense for profiled minors. Grants for first-time kid travelers from communities too often told they're out of place. Mandatory certifications that don't let anyone hide behind didn't know. QR codes on jetways that say report bias, protect kids, fly free, and the PSAs are simple, almost stark, black screen, white text. Every seat belongs to someone, ask questions later. No music, no soft focus, just the moral written big enough to read from far away. And still the question hangs in the air like a seatbelt sign that keeps blinking when the sky looks smooth. Do we only listen when a last name opens the door? Or can we build a world where a child's I belong is enough, where a laminated card is an artifact of a bad past, not a ticket that buys belief? Can we get there without another kid having to stand their ground until it shakes the country awake? Act 3 doesn't end with a kiss-off. It ends with a choice. The plane that day didn't take off on time, but something else did. A standard that says presence is protest, and the quiet can be thunder when enough of us refuse to look away. On Ava's next flight, the captain's voice crackles. A special welcome to Miss Jackson traveling with us today. And the applause is unpolished, unplanned, a soft roar that swells from the rear like weather. And she glances at the window, clouds stacked like cities, and exhales, not relief, not victory, ownership. And I keep thinking about that first no, the smallest barricade ever built, made of one syllable and a 9-year-old spine, about the way truth doesn't shout so much as it refuses to move, about how the most radical thing she did was take up the exact amount of space she was assigned, and how the rest of us, phones raise, hearts racing, had to decide if we were going to be audience or choir, if we were going to record a moment or help it become a movement. You know what I mean? So here's where I leave you, with a cabin mid-clap, with a girl buckled in at 3A under the soft cone of an overhead light, with a mother's hand resting easy on a daughter's shoulder, with a plaque catching sun near a gate that now feels like a starting line, and with one last look down the aisle, not to scold, just to ask, what do you call justice when arrives late, but determined? We need a last name to get through the door. Is it justice if it only works for the famous, or is it just the beginning, a wedge, a lever, a promise we intend to keep for every kid who doesn't have a silver pin waiting behind the curtain? If this story hit a nerve, good, sit with it, argue with it, talk back to it, and then talk to me. Drop your take in the comments. Tell me what accountability should look like, where the line is between protocol and profiling, what you'd change if you ran an airline or an airport or a country. Tell me if you think Ava's law goes far enough, or how you'd write it stronger. Because if we're serious about right and wrong, about who belongs where and why, the conversation can't end when the plane lands. It starts when someone says no, and the rest of us decide whether we're going to make room or make excuses.